Hello, Ghost of Lilacs here with the Stardew Valley challenge. There are a bunch of flower-only or fruit-only challenges, but this is my own with my own set of rules. All you need to know right off the bat is that I'm going to make money primarily from fruit and flowers and any artisan goods associated with them. I'll be taking the Joja route. I can't buy animals or fish ponds. My goal is to make 1 million gold cash in hand, not total earned. There isn't a time limit because I'd like to enjoy myself. I'm playing after the 1.6 update on PC with limited mods. I'll have them listed in the description below, where I have included more detailed rules I've self-imposed for this challenge. Let's get started. This is Ghost, who lives on Lilac Farm. Their favorite thing is strawberries. I woke in my grandpa's old farmhouse. Mayor Lewis had left me 15 parsnip seeds, which was thoughtful, if not completely useless. As soon as I made it into town, I would sell them. First, I needed to craft a chest. I got to work chopping trees and clearing debris. Once my chest was ready, I stashed some things away and headed into town. By the bus stop, I spied some forage I could sell for some quick cash. I stopped in the general store and met Pierre, the shifty-eyed proprietor. I sold my parsnip seeds and bought blue jazz and tulip seeds. I headed to the cindersap forest, where I found a trilobite fossil, horseradish, and spring onions. I donated the fossil to the museum and continued my rounds, greeting everyone. Just after 6:30, I had met everyone available. Back at my farm, I planted and watered my seeds. I spent the rest of the evening clearing weeds and obtained some mixed seeds I could plant the following day. I reached foraging level 1. I had a letter from Willie on day 2 asking me to meet him at the beach. I planted my mixed seeds and watered them. I chopped down a few trees and crafted another chest. At the beach, Willie gave me his old fishing rod. I hoed up a diggy spot and unearthed the anchor artifact. After meeting Willie, I needed to give someone a gift. I saw a daffodil and gave it to Vincent. I donated the anchor to the museum. I stopped at the cindersap forest for spring onions and headed to the mountain lake. I set up my chest and fished the rest of the day. I utilized a fish spawning spot when it appeared. It was late when I returned home. I sold some of my fish and the rest I kept for an energy source. I breezed past level 1 fishing on to level 2. The hypnotic tinkling of raindrops awoke me on day 3. On my way into town, I hoed up a copy of Woodcutter's Weekly, and upon reading it, I gained some foraging experience. I foraged in the cindersap forest for spring onions before heading to the mountain lake. Not long after my arrival, a fish spawning spot appeared. I fished the rest of the day. That evening, I fished up a chest with a diamond inside. I could donate it to the museum, but there will be plenty of diamonds in the mines. Once I returned home, I sold the gemstone along with most of my fish. I broke up some rocks before running out of energy. I reached foraging level 2 and fishing level 3. Clint was waiting on my farmhouse porch on day 4. He had blueprints for me for how to make a furnace. The clouds had cleared and the sun returned, and that meant I had to water my crops. Once finished, I headed into town where I was going to pick up a backpack upgrade. The general store wasn't open yet, so I headed to the beach. Marnie had posted a fetch quest for a sardine. I caught one and picked up my bigger bag. I stopped at home to clean up some of the smaller rocks at the south exit of my farm. Then I was off to Marnie's to deliver the fish. I spent the rest of the afternoon and evening cleaning up debris around the forest. There were no spring onions, and I ran out of energy before I finished. I returned home and had a quick snack before cleaning up a little more of my farm before bed. I reached mining level 1. Marnie was on my porch on day 5 with the cutest little cat. She asked me if I wanted to adopt her, and I accepted. I named her Ophelia. I had a letter from Joja informing me that the mines were open. It was just a neutral luck day, so I wasn't in a big hurry to go spelunking. Instead, I headed to Pierre's and picked up a bunch of flower seeds. I had to chop down some trees to make room for them, and I didn't finish my planting or watering until mid-afternoon. I headed to the mountains where I grabbed my fishing chest and headed into the cavern. Marlin of the Adventurers Guild was waiting for me and gave me a rusty sword to get monster slaying. I didn't really have enough energy for a big mining expedition, so I only made it about 5 floors down before I had to return home. I reached foraging level 3. Something looked a little different in my flower field on day 6. Crows. Crows had been eating my flowers. I wasn't happy about this. Marlin sent me a letter telling me I could enter the Adventurers Guild if I slayed 10 slimes. It was a good luck day, so I planned on mining anyway. In town, Mayor Lewis showed me the community center. I will not be fixing it. I have a fruit and flower empire to worry about. I delivered a green algae to my good friend Pierre to finish a fetch quest. I bought some tulip seeds while I was there to fill in the blanks left behind by the naughty birds. I planted them and headed to the mines. There were oodles of green slimes, so I finished Marlin's challenge easily. I made it to level 10 where I found the Wind Spire dagger. It wasn't great, but it was fast. I entered the Adventurers Guild and sold the rusty sword to Marlin. Back at my farm, I crafted my first furnace and started smelting a copper bar before bed. I reached combat level 1. I had a letter from the wizard on day 7. I was to visit him at his tower in the Cindersap Forest. My tulips were ready to harvest. I sold all of them, but was disappointed to see that crows had flown off with more of my plants. I needed to get a scarecrow, and fast. In town, I gave Mayor Lewis a daffodil for his birthday. I headed to Clint's and asked the blacksmith to open some geodes for me. I donated minerals to the museum and received some cauliflower and melon seeds. In the Cindersap Forest, I collected spring onions. I met the wizard, and I wasn't interested in the forest spirits he told me about. I planted the cauliflower seeds and cleaned up some of my farm. I headed to the mines and made it down to floor 15 before returning home. I reached level 1 farming. I crafted 2 scarecrows the morning of day 8. I watered my flowers and harvested some rice and blue jazz flowers. I crafted some stone gravel pathing to make getting around just a little easier. I would definitely be changing things up down the road, but for now, this would be fine. In town, I picked up another fetch quest from my good friend Pierre. He wanted a carp, and there was a fish spawning spot waiting for me at the mountain lake. I fished for a while, and then stopped in the mine for a little copper. I delivered the carp and received my first prize token. I exchanged it for some carrot seeds. These would be a great way to replenish my stamina. I planted them and spent the rest of the evening cleaning up my farm. I reached level 4 fishing and level 2 mining. I woke on day 9 with a letter from my dad, who sent me 500 gold. Thanks, Dad! I watered my flowers and wandered around town looking for forage. I didn't find much, but at the beach I hoed up some carrot seeds. On my way to the mountain lake, I found some more. I'll wait until after the egg festival to plant these. I spent the rest of the day fishing. Now, I don't feel bad making some money from fish, especially in the springtime. There aren't any fruits to plant until over halfway through the season. I wouldn't be able to afford many strawberry seeds by just planting flowers. Plus, I wasn't at level 5 fishing, so I wasn't going to be selling today's haul for any extra money. I watered my crops straight away on day 10. I harvested a pair of carrots that I'd hold on to replenish my stamina. It was Vincent's birthday, and I brought him a daffodil, because why not? Willie had posted a request to keep the art of fishing alive. All I needed to do was catch 3 anchovies. I fished in the ocean that afternoon, and that evening I turned in the request. I sold all of my fish at the regular price, even though I knew I'd be hitting level 5 and they'd sell for more tomorrow. I really don't enjoy fishing, and I could seriously exploit this, but I want to keep it as fair as possible. Before bed, I decided to plant my remaining carrot seeds. I reached level 5 fishing, and I chose the fisher profession. Fish sell for 25% more. I had a letter from Robin on day 11. She had lost her favorite axe and was offering a cash reward if it was returned. I had carrots and tulips ready to harvest. I sold the flowers and held on to the carrots. I obtained Robin's axe and found a few spring onions in the Cindersap Forest. I returned the axe and thought it would be a great day to go mining. It was a good luck day after all. No, it hecking wasn't! I was bombarded not once, but twice on the same floor by those little cave flies. You know the ones, the spawn of all things dark and treacherous. Yeah, those. My little dagger wasn't enough to hold them off. I retreated. When I returned, they were on the next floor, and I had enough. I did find the Monster Compendium, and upon reading it, monsters have a small chance to drop double loot. I fished for the rest of the evening and enjoyed the peaceful solitude of the mountains. I found the book Jewels of the Sea, and upon reading it, fishing treasure chests have a chance to yield roe that I will sell. I reached level 2 farming. Mayor Lewis sent me a letter on day 12 reminding me of the egg festival taking place the following day. My flower field was ablaze with hues of blues as the aptly named blue jazz flower was ready to pick. I would harvest them on egg festival day so I wouldn't have to re-hoe the dirt for my strawberries. It was a bad luck day, so I headed to the mines. It couldn't possibly be worse than the previous day. Could it? It was not as bad. There were plenty of winged wretches, but I could keep most of them isolated. I found an infested floor, and I got through it by taking my time and isolating the beasties as much as possible. At level 20, I obtained a glow ring, which I find to be more valuable than the magnetic ring, especially on floors 30 through 39, which will be shrouded in darkness. I made it to floor 25 before heading home. I had 1 iron bar, less than half of what I'd hoped for. But it couldn't be helped. The mines had been horrible, and without a strong weapon, it would be a while before I would be able to obtain a steady supply of iron ore. I used the 1 bar to make 1 sprinkler. I reached level 2 combat. I didn't waste any time the morning of day 13. I had flowers to pick, dirt to hoe, and plots to water in preparation for my strawberries. I was disappointed that I hadn't acquired more sprinklers in time, but I was really happy that I had saved up a nice chunk of change for seeds. I used all my sap to craft some basic fertilizer for the berries. At the festival, I purchased 80 strawberry seeds. This was great, as I could still have some room for a little bit of flowers. I chatted with my neighbors. I won the egg hunt, and with it, a cute hat. After the festivities, I returned to plant my bevy of berries. I donned my new hat as it made me feel as if I had some sort of farming superpowers, even if it was all in my head. Or maybe all on my head. It must have worked, because I reached level 3 farming. I had carrots and cauliflower ready to harvest on day 14. I saved 2 of my cauliflower and chipped the rest. I kept all of my carrots. I watered my garden and headed into town. I ordered a pickaxe upgrade from Clint. I brought along my geode collection for him to smash open. I donated a few minerals to the museum and headed to Pierre's. I purchased a bunch of blue jazz seeds. On my way home, I ran into the flower queen herself, Miss Haley. I gave her a daffodil for her birthday. I planted my posies and headed to the forest, where I harvested spring onions. Back home, I started chopping down my forest of a farm. I was going to need this space cleared for summer, and wood was going to be my most needed resource in the future. I ate a few of my fresh carrots throughout the day to keep my stamina up, and I went to bed satisfied that I had made some good progress. I reached foraging level 4. On day 15, I turned on the TV and learned it was salmonberry season. At foraging level 4, I obtained an extra berry when I gather, so I was going to be collecting quite a few today. As I made my way around the valley, I stopped at the mountain lake and utilized a fish spawning spot. When the fish moved on, so did I. I foraged the rest of the day. When I returned home, I had used up almost all of my copper by crafting tappers for oak resin and maple syrup. I would set up a designated tree farm in the future, but for now, this would do. I felt lucky on day 15. I had a letter from my dad. He sent me another 500 gold. My pickaxe was ready, so I swung by Clint's to pick it up. I searched high and low for berries the rest of the afternoon. That evening, I headed to the mines to test out my new pickaxe. It was actually a bad luck day, but toward the end of the night, some good things happened. I hit the bug eradication goal, which meant I wouldn't be stuck with this dagger anymore. I also found the carp shirt. It was cute, but I was going to stick to my overalls. I reached level 30 and raced to the Adventurers Guild to pick up the level 6 insect head weapon and sell my dagger. I reached level 3 mining. I had some kale to harvest from mixed seeds on day 17. After watering, I headed to the beach. I had picked up 2 fetch quests. Harvey had requested a sardine, and Demetrius had requested that I fish up 4 sardines. It didn't take very long for me to fish them up. I completed the delivery to Harvey and reported back to Demetrius, who gave me a prize token. I returned to town and exchanged it for an orange sapling I would plant in my greenhouse someday. There was a fish spawning spot in town, so I utilized it until the fish moved on. In the cindersap forest, I found spring onions galore. I collected salmon berries and found the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow in the dark. I collected 200 gold and a leprechaun hat. I'd wear it for the day and give it to Ophelia in the morning. I returned home and planted some carrot seeds and mixed seeds I had found in my travels. That night, a low-flying plane woke me. It sounded like something was hitting my roof. Oh well, I'm sure it wasn't anything important. On day 18, I gave Ophelia my leprechaun hat. She looked adorable. I harvested some rice and headed into town. It was Pam's birthday, and I gave her one of my salmon berries. I wasn't going to let a bad luck forecast ruin my day. I was heading to the mines. I stopped to utilize a fish spawning spot at the mountain lake before heading in. It really wasn't bad at all. I crushed the first 10 levels thanks to my insect head weapon. I was so happy to see the 40 levels. Iron ore was not easy to come by, but I found a nice little spot before I had to head home. I left with a button-down shirt and some carrot seeds I'd plant the next day. I reached level 6 fishing. I had a request from Jody on day 19. She wanted a cauliflower, and that was perfect as I had some ready to harvest. I crafted 3 more sprinklers and set them up. In town, I delivered Jody's cauliflower and headed to the beach. Caroline had posted a request for a herring. The day before, she had asked for a refined quartz. I fished until I caught the herring and delivered both to her, finishing 2 fetch quests. I spent the evening in the mines. I only made it down 5 floors, but I found an arcane shirt. I also picked up 25 pieces of iron ore. Real talk, I had some technical difficulties, so this is cut off a bit, but I reached level 3 combat. I crafted and set up sprinklers on day 20. I didn't want to go overboard with these, as I was going to be unlocking quality sprinklers soon. I crafted just about half, so that would at least save me a good amount of energy when watering each morning. It was Shane's birthday, and I brought him a salmon berry. I felt lucky, so I headed to the mines. It was a great day for iron ore, and I didn't have much difficulty finding the ladders. I did encounter quite a few beasties. I obtained the tundra boots on floor 50, which were much needed. I didn't have any footwear prior to finding these, and I was going to need a defense boost for the lower levels. I made it to floor 58 before I returned home. I found a small crystal decoration in the mines I would set up in my farmhouse. I reached mining level 4. On day 21, I awoke to a farmer's favorite sight and sound, strawberries to harvest and a fresh spring rain. Mixed in with the ruby red fruit, I had blue jazz flowers and a few parsnips. I saved one for a fetch quest I had picked up for Gus the day before. I sold all my strawberries except for 10 regular quality ones. I would turn these into seeds and fill my future greenhouse with them. I fished up some catfish in town before the Star Drop Saloon opened. I turned in the parsnip to Gus, and he gave me a prize token. I exchanged it for some mixed flower seeds I would plant in the summer. It was a bad luck day, but I headed to the mines anyway. It really wasn't bad at all. At level 60, I obtained the crystal dagger. I did run into quite a few monsters along the way, and I took the time to slay them. I also found some combat boots that replaced my tundra set. I made it to floor 65 and stopped at the Adventurers Guild to sell a lead rod, the crystal dagger, and tundra boots. I reached farming level 5 and chose the tiller profession. Crops are worth 10% more. And I reached level 4 combat. Demetrius was waiting on my farmhouse porch with a proposal on day 22. I should specify it was a scientific proposal. He wanted to study wildlife in a controlled environment, yada yada, and he offered to hook me up with mushrooms or fruit bats. I chose fruit bats for obvious reasons. My first batch of oak resin was ready from my tappers, and I could not be more excited. As soon as I'm able to craft some kegs, I'll be making fruit wine. After watering my plants, I headed to the mines. It was a good luck day, and I just wanted to get to floor 80, the gold ore floors. I wanted to have a nice stockpile of gold bars ready to go for when I reached farming level 6, so I could start making my quality sprinklers. There weren't that many monsters, but it wasn't easy finding ladders. I reached level 70 in the early evening, and it was after midnight when I reached level 80. I obtained a Templar's Blade, which is slightly stronger than my insect head, but not as fast. I didn't have time to worry about which had better stats. I had to hurry home before I passed out. I reached level 5 mining and chose the miner profession, +1 ore per vein. Day 23 was rainy and lucky. I crafted a recycling machine to process some of the junk I found fishing. I was off to the mines as I wanted to get as much gold ore as possible today. I set up my furnaces so I could smelt bars every 5 floors. I made a lot of progress in the mines. By noon, I had reached level 85, and I reached level 90 before 7 o'clock. I obtained the Obsidian Edge, which was slow, but put both my Templar's Blade and Insect Head to shame as far as strength. Around 10, I made it to level 95. I sold the Insect Head, Templar's Blade, and a pair of genie shoes to the Adventurers Guild. I brought home 50 pieces of gold ore, not including what I had been smelting throughout the day. I reached level 6 farming. Time for quality sprinklers. I reached level 5 combat and chose the fighter profession. All attacks deal 10% more damage. I reached level 5 foraging and chose the forester profession. Trees drop 25% more wood. I reached level 6 mining. What, no fishing? Day 24 was the day of the flower dance. When I moved to the valley, I brought along my mom's dress that she used to wear to Pelican Town's flower festival. It was a little faded with age, but I thought it still looked nice. I crafted quality sprinklers and set them up. My first batch of maple syrup was ready, and I used it to craft bee houses. I watered my plants and continued making sprinklers until it was festival time. I bought a rarecrow scarecrow and chatted with my neighbors. I didn't really want to dance with anyone. I felt like an anthropologist observing some primitive ritual. After the festivities, I returned home and crafted more sprinklers. Every area has a sprinkler, quality or just plain. There would be very little watering for me in the morning. I had strawberries ready to harvest on day 25. I crafted my first preserve jar and added a strawberry to make some jelly. I headed into town with my pockets stuffed full of gems, minerals, dwarf scrolls, and geodes. I donated some stuff to the museum, and I had Clint open some geodes. I also requested a pickaxe upgrade. I donated more things to the museum and headed home. I spent the rest of the afternoon smelting bars for quality sprinklers and starting a little tree farm to the far right of my crop growing area. This was temporary, but it would work great for now. That evening, I wandered up to the mountains to deliver a cauliflower to Sebastian, finishing a fetch quest. I returned home and replaced all of my sprinklers with quality ones, except one because I ran out of time. And I also finished up a maple tree farm. I had just 4 little spots to water on day 26. I crafted my final quality sprinkler and I'd be set for summer. Mayor Lewis sent me 500 gold as a prize for the monthly Best Neighbor of the Month award. I did a lot of fetch quests this season. It was Pierre's birthday, and you know I couldn't let my good friend's special day pass without bringing him something. I brought him a daffodil and we chatted. He was filled with determination to keep his shop open, and Morris and his Joja goons would just have to... Wait a second. Joja. Oh, that's right. I still needed to sign up for my Joja membership. Happy birthday to you. I raced to Joja Mart where I purchased my Joja membership. How exciting! I couldn't wait to save up for a greenhouse and be able to have my strawberries year-round. While in town, I delivered a green algae to Clint and swung by Willie's to buy the iridium rod. It was pricey, but I considered it an investment. I couldn't go mining right now. What else was I supposed to do today? I fished at a spawning spot at the mountain lake. When the fish left, I headed to the cindersap forest for more fishing. That evening, I cleaned up my farm a bit before bed. Pierre sent me a letter on day 27. Because we were such good friends, he gave me the blueberry tart recipe. I didn't have any crops to water, so I headed into town. I picked up a fetch quest for Willie, who wanted me to catch 3 smallmouth bass. I did, and turned in the request for a prize token. I exchanged the token for 3 mystery boxes. I swung by Clint's for my pickaxe and had the blacksmith open a geode and the mystery boxes. Meh, all junk. I stopped by Penny's and brought her an emerald because I think I'm going to court her. I stopped by the mountain lake and fished at a spawning spot for a while. At my farm, I planted some mixed seeds to act as placeholders for the upcoming season change. I brought Emily an amethyst for her birthday. I was off to the mines. It was a bad luck day, but right away a shadow shaman dropped a copper and iron bar. The ladders were very easy to find, and there was a fair amount of gold ore. I reached level 100 and was awarded a star drop. Yay, more energy! I mined the rest of the evening and made it to floor 108 before returning home. Right before bed, I saw my first strawberry preserves was ready. I shipped it for some quick cash. My honey was ready on day 28. Emily sent me the recipe for salad. I harvested a potato and cauliflower from mixed seeds. With my improved pickaxe, I was able to break up the big rocks at the bottom of my farm. I checked my fruit cave and found a variety of fruits that I scooped up and sold. Robin had requested 30 pieces of wood, so I chopped down some trees and turned in the request. Then it was off to the mines. I was determined to get to the bottom of them today. It was a good luck day, and I still ran into a slime-infested floor. It slowed me down just a little bit. I acquired a pair of space boots that I quickly equipped for a defensive boost. I found a flat-topped hat that evening that would look great for my Solomon Kane cosplay, but not much else. I continued in the mines until I reached floor 120. I obtained the skull key and warp-totemed my way out of there. I reached farming level 7 and mining level 7. The saddest part of spring ending was saying goodbye to my strawberries on day 1. But with the changing of the seasons came the changing of my farm layout. When I had to water everything by hand, it made sense to keep all my plants bunched close together, but it was time to make some adjustments for my future lightning rods. I planted my mixed flower seeds next to my bee houses for special flower honey. I planted the summer squash seasonal seeds I obtained at the end of spring. I would use these for stamina. I purchased 100 melon and 100 blueberry seeds. I could have added hot peppers to the mix, but this would be fine for now. The rest of the day was spent smelting ore for additional sprinklers and adding to my crop area. I chopped down a few trees to make room, and by the end of the night, I was really pleased with what I had accomplished. I did not sell anything that day. I started day 2 by cleaning up my farm a bit. With the heat of summer came more weeds, rocks, and branches to remove. I headed to the mines with a few goals for the day. Demetrius had posted a request to slay 5 rock crabs. I wanted an axe upgrade, but I was out of copper, and I was nearly out of iron. I started with the copper. I didn't need much, so I didn't spend much time in the higher levels of the mines. Once I had gathered enough ore for 5 bars, I went to the lower levels. Right away, I obtained 2 bars from monster drops. I wasn't mad about it. I stayed in these levels until I had slayed all 5 crabs. I would turn the quest in the following day. The rest of the evening was spent collecting iron. I had to leave before obtaining much. At the Adventurers Guild, I sold some footwear. The crab slaying paid off. I reached level 6 combat. On day 3, I had a letter from Mayor Lewis asking me to find his lucky purple shorts. I'd find them, but I wasn't sure if I was going to return them or not. In town, I picked up a fetch quest for Haley, who wanted a red mullet. I headed to the beach and caught one, and kept on fishing. I delivered the fish and headed to Clint's, but was sidetracked by another fish spawning spot. I had to use it while it was available, so I postponed my trip to the blacksmith. Once the fishies moved on, I ordered an axe upgrade and had Clint open some geodes and mystery boxes. I donated a few things to the museum and brought Penny a sweet pea flower. I turned in Demetrius's crab slaying request and received a prize token. I exchanged it for a star drop tea. I knew exactly who I'd give that to. There had been an earthquake during the night, and I was anxious to see if there had been any damage in the mountains. Well, it actually opened up the train station and the spa. I cleaned up some rocks and weeds. Then it was back to the mines. I really needed coal and iron ore, and the wintry cold levels were the place to find both. I found a few dust sprites that helped with the coal, but I hit the jackpot with iron ore. I left with 75 pieces. I reached level 7 fishing. My honey was ready on day 4. I took some time to move around my bee houses just a little bit before heading into town. I brought a sweet pea flower and Stardrop tea to Penny. She was delighted. My generous spirit guided me to the cindersap forest where I brought Jas a sweet pea for her birthday. At the mountain lake, I fished for a bit before heading back into the mines. It was not a good luck day, but that really didn't seem to make much of a difference. I lucked out when I found an infested floor. I farmed dust sprites and iron ore the rest of the evening. I left with 78 pieces of ore and 20 pieces of coal. I sold some thermal boots to the Adventurers Guild before returning home. I had a very uneventful day 5. My axe was ready for pickup at Clint's. I had brought along some iron bars and requested an upgrade. The blacksmith also opened some geodes for me. I donated the new minerals to the museum. Without any real plans, I returned to my farm, where I spent the rest of the afternoon into evening clearing away weeds and rock. In addition to the fiber and stone, I found mixed seeds, mixed flower seeds, geodes, and coal. Once my farm was sufficiently cleared, I headed to the mountain lake, where I fished the rest of the evening. I noticed something strange when I checked the weather forecast on day 6. Ooh, anomalous weather. I wonder what that could mean. Probably nothing. None of my fruit were ready to harvest, so I checked my fruit cave. The bats had left me some goodies. I put them in a chest to process them in preserve jars. I was not going to sell the jelly until I had reached level 10 farming and chosen the artisan profession, ensuring I would get the most bang for my buck. I was wandering around Pelican Town, thinking about fishing, when a train passed through the valley. I raced up to the mountains. I was pretty lucky. The train dropped some geodes and stone. I took the geodes to Clint, he processed them, and I donated a new mineral to the museum. I ocean fished for the rest of the afternoon. That evening, I entered the mines for more coal and iron ore. I took the time to slay all manner of beasties. During a bat attack, I didn't move on until all of them were eliminated. I would need bat wings for my future lightning rods. A green rain had descended upon the valley on day 7, and with it, a whole bunch of weeds. I was happy to see that my maple trees had grown, but I was super annoyed that while my axe was ready to pick up, Clint was hiding in the saloon, so I couldn't pick it up. No matter, I headed to the cindersap forest. I fished at a spawning spot and spent the rest of the day hacking away at weeds for fiber, moss, mixed seeds, and mixed flower seeds. All of that came to a halt when I saw something large, strange, and creepy out of the corner of my eye. No, it wasn't Krobus on steroids, it was Stardew Valley's version of Sasquatch. I pretended I didn't see anything and continued around the woods until I was tired of hacking. All of the fiber hacking paid off as I reached level 6 foraging and can now craft lightning rods. I started day 8 at the beach. Caroline wanted a tuna, so I fished one up. I sold the rest of my fish to Willie and turned in the request. I picked up my axe from Clint. He crushed some geodes, and I donated new artifacts to the museum. I delivered a frozen tear to Emily, completing another fetch quest. I was eager to try out my new axe, so I headed to the secret woods where I busted stumps and slayed slimes. I returned to my farm where I spent the rest of the evening cutting down trees. I crafted 2 bait makers and added another row to my oak tree area. Now that the big stumps were out of the way, I had more room for tapper trees. I added some pathing and planted another blueberry before bed. Another rain fell on day 9, but thankfully it wasn't green. I had flowers ready to pick, and while I could have waited for them to influence the honey, I would rather have some money now. When fall rolls around, I'll set and forget the fairy roses so they can just produce honey all season. I replanted the posies with mixed flower seeds. I crafted some lightning rods and sprinklers. I added another row to my garden. In town, I purchased 56 hot pepper seeds. Yes, hot peppers are a fruit, and I planted them. Demetrius had posted a request for 3 red mullets to be fished up. I headed to the beach, and the first 3 fish I caught finished up the request. On my way to turn in the request, I hoed up the book Jack be nimble, Jack be thick, and upon reading it, I gained +1 defense. I turned in the request to Demetrius, and he awarded me a prize token. I headed into the mines for copper. I was going to need a bunch when I unlocked kegs, which would be right around the corner. The monsters weren't bad, and I found an okay amount of copper. I was actually hoping one of those winged wretches would drop the ancient seed artifact. Sure, there's only a 0.5% chance, but stranger things have happened. But not today. I reached fishing level 8. I had some mail on day 10. Emily sent me some cloth, and Mayor Lewis wrote to remind me of the beach luau the following day. I set up a little area for mahogany trees before heading into town. I brought geodes to Clint and donated a new mineral to the museum. I exchanged a prize token for a blue striped bed and headed to the mountains. It was Mara's birthday, so I brought her some quartz. Back in town, I hoed up some sleeveless overalls. At Joja Mart, I purchased more poppy seeds. I returned to my farm and chopped some trees. I crafted more sprinklers and added my poppy seeds and more mixed flower seeds. Emily was waiting on my porch on day 11. She knew I had obtained cloth because she sent me some the day before. She invited me to use her sewing machine, and I thought that was really nice. I didn't have any fruit ready to harvest, so I chopped down some trees and crafted more tappers from my tree farm areas. It was time for the luau. I grabbed the gold quality cauliflower I had saved from spring and headed to the beach. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Folks were chatting, eating, dancing, and sucking up to the governor. I chatted with everyone and added my very best cauliflower to the hot tub, soup cauldron. I bet that soup cauldron was actually Mayor Lewis's old hot tub, and he transformed it into a soup cauldron. That seems like something disgusting he'd do. Anyway, the taste of my amazing cauliflower must have drowned out the abysmal residue of truffle oil, purple shorts, and regret as the governor went gaga over it. Mayor Lewis, relieved nobody recognized his old jacuzzi, also showed his gratitude. I put on a brave face and tasted some for myself. Not bad. It was time to head home. I reached level 7 foraging. I felt super popular on day 12. Pam, Shane, and Caroline all sent me cooking recipes. I had a summer spangle ready to pick, and I planted my last blueberry seed in its place. I picked up a fishing request for Willie. The fisherman wanted me to catch 3 rainbow trout. I set up at my favorite fishing spot in town and got to work. It took the better part of the morning into the afternoon before I caught all 3. I reported back to Willie and sold the rest of the fish I had caught. I headed to the mines, first for copper, then for iron ore. Absolutely nothing noteworthy happened. I didn't have any beastie attacks, I didn't obtain an ancient seed or anything cool. Just an ordinary day. Wow, that was awful. I did reach level 8 mining. I awoke to the crash of lightning on day 13. I sure was glad I had crafted those lightning rods. My melons were ready to harvest. I scooped them up, replanted them, and crafted 2 more sprinklers for a few melon seeds and summer squash. I checked the mail, and Pam had sent me a beer. I tossed it right in the shipping bin. I'm interested in Penny, but I wasn't a fan of her mom or her drinking. I headed into town, where I gifted one of my summer squash to Alex for his birthday. I was off to the mines, where I had picked up a slime slaying request. I had to take out 10 of the red beasties. I ate all my summer squash in the process, but I finished it up that afternoon. I had acquired an emerald in the mines and wanted to surprise Penny with it. I did, and I'm pretty sure I made her day. At the saloon, I turned in the request to Mayor Lewis and returned to the mines. I was going to need more copper, and I would have to keep making trips to the mines for tappers and processing machines. On day 14, I was treated to a feast for the eyes. My blueberries and hot peppers were ready. I knew that waiting so long for the harvest would pay off. This would be my biggest payday yet. I had some geodes for Clint to crush, but I stopped at the beach first for some foraging. I sold my haul to Willie. Clint crushed the geodes. I turned in the new goodies to the museum and claimed my rare crow scarecrow. I sold the duplicate minerals to Clint and headed home. I dropped off some things and checked my fruit cave where I sold the berries and wild plums. I headed to the mines and dug around in the dirt of the higher levels. I was missing the red dwarf scroll. It took me most of the evening, but I finally found it. I farmed iron and coal the rest of the evening. I reached farming level 8, and with it, the keg recipe. This is where the fun begins. I woke up feeling lucky on day 15. I crafted my first kegs and added melons to them for melon wine. In town, I ordered the greenhouse community improvement at Joja Mart. I didn't have a seed maker yet, so I wouldn't be able to plant my strawberries immediately, but I would reach level 9 farming soon. I cleared the debris away from the area north of the superstore and found a prize token. Clint opened some geodes for me, and I turned in goodies and the dwarf scroll to obtain the dwarfish translation guide. I explored the area between Joja and Clint and obtained the alleyway buffet book. Upon reading it, I have a greater chance to find items in the trash. I delivered a grape to Morrow, completing a fetch quest, and received another prize token. I exchanged both and received 4 mushroom logs and a pomegranate sapling. I could use the logs as I didn't craft them or spend money on them, but I'd rather not. I put them in a chest when I returned home. I cut some trees near the bus stop and headed to the mines for copper. I introduced myself to the dwarf and purchased the Dwarfish Safety Manual. Upon reading it, I received 25% less damage from explosives. The mines weren't very interesting until that evening. A grub, a yucky, icky little grub, dropped a prismatic shard. I could not believe it. There is a 0.05% chance of a monster dropping it after reaching the bottom of the mines. How is it possible I obtained a prismatic shard before an ancient fruit seed? It didn't matter. Once I unlocked the bus to Calico Desert, I would get the Galaxy Sword. This was perfect. I returned home late and crafted a glowstone ring. I still hadn't found a magnet ring, so I didn't have much choice. That night, Morris and the Joja boys fixed my greenhouse. I reached level 7 combat. Granny Evelyn stopped by my farm on day 16. She had heard about my new greenhouse and brought me a garden pot and blueprints to make more. I had honey ready, and since my poppies had matured, it was poppy honey. It will sell for a little more than regular honey. I took Granny Evelyn's garden pot and added a summer squash seed to it. Crows won't bother it, and it will be easy to remember to water as I have to give Ophelia water every day. I planted my pomegranate and orange saplings in the greenhouse. A train was passing through the valley, so I raced up to the mountains to see if anything would fall from the cars. I acquired some wood and coal. I chopped trees as I waited for the train to pass, then chopped more trees around the mountain lake. It was mine time. I obtained a good amount of copper and iron. Before heading home, I sold some old equipment to the Adventurers Guild. On day 17, Linus sent me the recipe for sashimi. I had hot peppers ready to harvest, then I was off to town. I wanted to give Sam a birthday present, but I was too early, so I fished for a bit. I delivered a spiceberry to George, completing a fetch quest, and utilized a fishing spot. I sold all of my fish to Willie and headed to Clint. He crushed geodes, I donated stuff, I sold the duplicates, the usual. I gave Sam a summer squash for his birthday, and he disliked it, which I found really funny. See, only 5 villagers dislike summer squash, and he is one of them, and I didn't realize that. As he is also vying for the fair Penny's affections, it seems appropriate, and I really don't care if he likes my gift. I headed to the secret woods and busted stumps and cut down some trees in the forest. At my farm, I added more mahogany seeds to my tree farm area and chopped more trees before heading to bed. There was a strong windstorm during the night. I had the blues on day 18, but in the best possible way. It was another blueberry harvesting day. I scooped them up and picked some poppies and replanted them with mixed flower seeds. I had more oak resin, so I crafted 2 more kegs. I would not fill them until the other ones were finished so I could keep them on a schedule. In town, I gifted one of my gold quality poppies to Penny. I delivered a grape to Granny Evelyn and headed to the mines. It was a good luck day, and I was on a mission for frozen geodes and iron ore. I left that night with 1 frozen geode. I don't know what is going on. I can't find an ancient seed or any geodes other than the plain ones from the copper floors. But I wasn't going to let it get me down. At home, I chopped trees until it was time for bed. I had a letter from my dad on day 19. He sent me some stone. I felt a little homesick, but it was really nice that he was thinking of me. I picked some of my flowers and planted mixed seeds and mixed flower seeds in their place. Dr. Harvey had posted a fetch request for a flounder, so I headed to the beach. I fished one up and sold the rest of my fishies to Willie. It was Demetrius's birthday, and I gave him a strawberry. I chopped trees for a bit, then turned in the flounder to the doctor. He gave me a prize token. I exchanged it for Friendship 101, and upon reading it, I can become friends a little faster. On my way through the cindersap forest, I bought the rare seed from the traveling cart lady. I would add it to my greenhouse the next day. I stump busted in the secret woods and spent the rest of the evening cleaning up my farm. I reached level 9 farming. Seed maker, here I come. On day 20, Demetrius sent me the recipe for fried mushrooms. Clint sent me an iron bar, and Demetrius requested a melon from my farm. I had hot peppers ready to harvest. Once I was finished, I started setting up my greenhouse. I crafted quality sprinklers and seed makers. I processed strawberries through the seed makers and planted the seeds along with the rare seed I purchased the day before. I used some speed grow on the rare seed and a few of the strawberries. Once I had finished, I headed to the beach to fish up 2 tuna for Demetrius. It was a bad luck day, but I fished up so many treasure chests with artifacts that I had to take a little break in the middle to drop some off at the museum. When I returned to the beach, I finally caught the tuna. I was ready to leave when a fish spawning spot appeared. I fished until the fish moved on. At that point, it was nearly 11 o'clock. It was actually the day of the trout derby, so I could have spent my day fishing in the cindersap forest, but instead it was at the beach. I reached level 8 foraging and level 9 fishing. It was a humid, rainy morning on day 21. It was the second day of the trout derby, and while I had no intention of participating, Marnie had requested a rainbow trout. While I waited for her shop to open, I fished up several and obtained prizes that I later sold. Once Marnie's shop opened, I delivered the trout and scooped up the lucky purple shorts. I headed to the mountains where I turned in the previous day's tuna request to Demetrius and delivered the melon he had requested. In town, I donated a rare disc to the museum and picked up a rare crow scarecrow. I gave a poppy to Penny before heading to Pierre's. Abigail wanted me to play Journey of the Prairie King with her, and I had brought along my game genie. Okay, it's actually a mod, and we crushed the first level together. She acknowledged that I must be experienced with a joystick after all. Not touching that one. Pierre was boo-hooing about the hold Joja had on Pelican Town, so to add insult to injury, as their number 1 member, I decided to spend some of my hard-earned cash on a backpack upgrade. By tossing some coins Pierre's way, he'd never suspect that I was the final nail in the coffin that led to his bankruptcy. Mwahaha. Excuse me. Back at my farm, I crafted more lightning rods and set them up around my tree farm area. I headed to the mines to mine up some gold. I didn't find anything particularly interesting, just made me wish I had my galaxy sword. Oh well, soon enough. On day 22, Marnie braved the rain to visit my farm. She wanted a cave carrot to train her goats to say hello. I had one set aside, I just needed to deliver it. She also sent me the pale broth recipe. I had blueberries and summer squash ready to harvest. I had some oak resin ready, and I crafted 2 more kegs. I dropped off the cave carrot to Marnie and headed to the mines. It was the dwarf's birthday, and I brought him a topaz. I wanted more bee houses for fall, and I was running low on coal, so I stuck to the frozen levels. It was a great mine run. I left with 101 pieces of iron ore, 7 frozen geodes, 2 diamonds, and a variety of gemstones. I sold a pair of thermal boots to the Adventurers Guild and headed home. Pickles, don't rub the microphone, please. That night, a little fairy visited my farm and sped up the growth on my melons. I reached level 9 mining. had some melons ready to harvest thanks to the crop fairy on day 23. I crafted more kegs, and soon I would need to order a shed from Robin. I headed into town and delivered a Joja Cola to Pam, completing a fetch quest and earning a prize token. I gave a poppy to Penny. I exchanged my prize token for explosives. I headed to Clint's, where I ordered a pickaxe upgrade, and the blacksmith opened a few geodes. I donated new minerals to the museum. I headed to the beach, where I fixed the bridge to the tide pools. I collected the forage and sold it to Willie. Then I headed to Joja Mart to unlock a community upgrade. The bus to Calico Desert would be fixed overnight. I could start cultivating starfruit in my greenhouse for wine. Without my pickaxe or a desire to fish, I focused on wood gathering, first in the secret woods, then the cinder sap forest. That evening, a book fell out of a tree, Woody's Secret. Upon reading it, felled trees have a 5% chance to yield double the wood. I chopped until I ran out of energy. The bus was fixed overnight. Willie's birthday was on day 24, and I gifted him a gold bar. I went to visit Penny, and she wanted me to try a recipe she invented. Because solid, lasting relationships are built on lies, I told her it was delicious. She named it after me, Chili de Ghost, as eating it will send you directly to the spirit realm. Pam had requested a fire quartz, and I brought her one. I chopped some trees on my farm and headed to Robin's, where I purchased the big chest recipe and some pathing recipes. I spent the rest of the evening chopping down trees near my greenhouse. I'd like to dedicate this area to the flowers I'll be planting. I stopped by the saloon to pick up some salads for the desert trip I'd be taking the following day. The rest of my melons are ready to harvest on day 25. I sold the higher quality ones and saved the regular quality ones to process in my kegs. George sent me a request for a hot pepper to put on his sore knee. I had one saved for this very occasion. I hurried to Clint's to pick up my gold pickaxe and dropped off the pepper to George. Then I was off to the desert. I had packed along a chest, my salads, some explosives, and the prismatic shard. I met Sandy, the proprietor of the oasis. I gave her a sweet pea flower to make a good impression. Then I raised the prismatic shard between the 3 pillars of the sand, and behold, the gem transformed into the mighty galaxy sword. Now, I have a mod to add an elevator to the caverns to make traversing a wee bit easier. If you have seen my other playthroughs, you will see that I have and can make it to floor 100 on my own talents and skill, but I want to take it a bit easier this time. I ran into an infested floor and took time to slay all of the slimes I found. Obviously, by slaying 1,000, I'd earned the slime charmer ring, but there was another reason. The purple slimes had a repeating 8% chance to drop iridium ore until it fails. They also have a 10% chance of dropping coal, and I really need some for my fall bee houses. I left with a good amount of resources. I started smelting iridium bars upon my return and crafted 6 bee houses before bed. An explosion was heard during the night. I reached level 8 combat. I had some interesting mail on day 26. George sent me the fried eel recipe, and Mr. Key sent me a challenge to make it to floor 25 of the Skull Cavern. I had blueberries and hot peppers ready to harvest. I chopped down some trees and found the Bait and Bobber book. Upon reading it, I gained some fishing experience. I went fishing at the mountain lake because both Pam and Penny requested some carp. I'd imagine it's as if one of them put it on the shopping list and the other one didn't realize it, so they both thought that they needed it. I don't know, but thanks to a fish spawning spot, I fished them up quickly. I delivered pennies and fished at a spawning spot in town. I brought Clint geodes to smash and bought some coal. I sold my fish to Willie, including the carp I meant to give to Pam. I should have just bought it back from him, but I returned to the mountain lake and caught another. I delivered it and received a prize token that I exchanged for the sports cap. I returned home to an exploded tree, which I don't understand as there were lightning rods around it. I found the cause for the previous evening's explosion. A meteor had landed on my farm. I broke it apart with my pickaxe and obtained some iridium and omni geodes. In my greenhouse, I had my first strawberries ready to harvest. I set up a little flower area, and I do mean little, Just a teeny basic sprinkler and some bee houses. Someday it would look great. Just not today. I reached farming level 10 and chose the artisan profession. Artisan goods are worth 40% more. Mr. Keys sent me 10,000 gold for reaching the 25th floor in the Skull Caverns on day 27. Summer was coming to an end, and I had to really get serious about rearranging some things for fall. I imagined this beautiful garden of flowers in the top corner of my farm, but I didn't want to craft more sprinklers right now. I had unlocked iridium sprinklers with level 9 farming, but I didn't want to craft them yet. It seemed silly to craft more regular ones, so I pulled out the basic sprinklers I had stored away and set them up for future flowers. I had to rearrange my bee houses a bit, and I'm still not sold on the layout, but for now it will be fine. I took the money from my strange benefactor and with it purchased a shed from Robin. My keg situation was getting out of control. I needed a better storage solution. I returned home and recalled that it was time to sell my jellies and wine. This was going to be a great payday thanks to the artisan perk. I headed to the Skull Caverns and started on floor 25. I was always going to need ore for bee houses, preserve jars, and kegs, so I might as well get started gathering. I only had one preserve jar due to my serious lack of coal. Once I reach level 10 mining, my chance of obtaining coal is doubled, so I had to keep on grinding to get there. I returned home with 5 emeralds, some diamonds, and pockets full of ore, but not much coal. That night, the fairy returned and sped up the growing time on some mixed seeds I had planted just as placeholders for fall. That was certainly unexpected. Summer was leaving the valley on day 28, but thanks to the crop fairy, I had melons, blueberries, radishes, and tomatoes ready to harvest. In my greenhouse, I had a whole bunch of strawberries ready. I headed to Clint's to crush some geodes before heading to the mines. I wanted to try out my galaxy sword on the frozen floors. Well, it certainly made quick work of the dust sprites and slimes. I was able to obtain 22 pieces of coal before I had to head to the beach for the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies. I chatted with my neighbors and purchased a pretty banner to commemorate my first summer in the valley. As I waited for the jellies to make their appearance, it was the first time I felt at home.
Hello, this is Coconut, and Coconut would like to remind you to stay hydrated. It's about halfway through the video, and you're probably getting a little thirsty, so don't forget to drink some water.
The once vibrant blueberries of summer had withered on the vine on the morning of day 1. Fall had come to the valley, and with it a smoky smell that hung in the air and the crunch of fallen leaves. I got to work scything up the dried husks of my once vibrant produce. I hoed up spots and watered them in preparation for the seeds I was going to plant. I had some pumpkin and broccoli seeds that I planted before heading into town. Sidebar: pumpkins are technically fruits, but for some reason, the Stardew Agricultural Committee did not deem them as such, so I stuck to cranberries. I bought 1 fairy rose flower seed, and I watched in silence as the rest of my savings drained from my pockets. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up around the farm and rearranging my bee houses. I crafted more kegs and bee houses and set them up. That evening, I had some time before bed, so I fished at the mountain lake. I chopped a few trees on day 2 and crafted more kegs. My shed was ready, so I scooped up my keg collection, set them up, and filled them with melons. In town, Mayor Lewis and Robin were setting up the special order board. I'll finish some of these requests if I don't have anything else to do or if I really want the reward. I picked up fragments of the past. I needed to collect 100 pieces of bone for Gunther. No problem. It was Penny's birthday and I brought her a gold star melon I had saved. Our relationship was currently maxed out. I could have stopped to buy her a bouquet, but I figured I'd wait. There wasn't any rush. I headed to the mines and started working on Gunther's request. I cycled through floors 70 through 80 and left partway through my second run. I sold a bone sword before heading home and had obtained 18 bone fragments. I woke to a dreary rainy morning on day 3. I had a bunch of mail. Emily sent me wool, Pierre told me about the bouquet he was selling, and Marnie wanted amaranth. I wouldn't be growing the amaranth, but if I obtained some from mixed seeds, I'd deliver it. I had strawberries ready to harvest in my greenhouse. I sold the higher qualities and turned the regulars into seeds for spring. I could have replanted them, but I'd like to dedicate the rest of my greenhouse to star fruit once I had the funds. Mayor Lewis had posted a monster slaying request for 6 red slimes. I had that finished before noon and spent the rest of the day on the frozen floors. I cycled through them 2.5 times, picking up loads of iron ore on the way. I slayed enough skeletons to complete the monster eradication goal for them, and I continued until it was getting very late. I sold 2 bone swords to Marlin and raced home. I had obtained 43 bone fragments and a cute little houseplant I set up in my farmhouse. On day 4, I felt Ophelia's love for me. It felt like only yesterday the little black kitten came to live on Lilac Farm. Demetrius had posted a request that someone fish up 2 largemouth bass. As I was low on funds, I nominated myself for the job. I fished them up and turned in the request. I stopped in town and turned in the slime slaying request to Mayor Lewis and headed to Clint's. I had the blacksmith open geodes and mystery boxes. Mountain warp totems, fertilizers, a pearl, mixed seeds, and snacks were among the treasures contained within. I donated the new minerals to the museum and headed home. I had just enough of those mixed seeds to fill in the empty spaces where I hadn't enough money to buy all of the cranberry seeds I had wanted. Maybe there'd be an amaranth for Marnie after all. I headed to the mines and spent the rest of the evening working on Gunther's special order. I left with 28 pieces of bone. Only a few more and I could turn them in. Gunther was waiting on my farmhouse porch on day 5. He thanked me for all the donations I had made to the museum and gave me a beautiful antique key. I headed to the mines to complete his fragments of the past request. I finished it in a few hours. I had picked up a slaying request from Demetrius to eliminate 3 rock crabs. I completed it and headed to town. I dropped off the bone fragments at the museum and obtained 3,500 gold. It was Elliot's birthday and I brought him a pomegranate. I turned in Demetrius's request and he gave me a prize token. I exchanged 2 prize tokens for a dehydrator and some mystery boxes. Before heading home, I tried the antique key in the sewer and it unlocked. I met Krobus, merchant of rare and exotic goods. I bought an iridium sprinkler from him and returned home. I set up my dehydrator and added some salmon berries. I chopped trees and saw that my bee houses were ready. As it was just plain honey and I had an empty keg, I threw some in to make mead. I reached level 10 mining and chose the prospector profession. My chance to find coal is doubled. My dehydrated salmon berries were ready on day 6. I added some more before checking the mail. Gunther had sent me the crafting recipe for the bone mill. I had some strawberries ready to harvest in the greenhouse. I wanted Clint to open some geodes and mystery boxes, but I finished my farm chores a little too early. I fished at a spawning spot in town to pass the time. Once he opened them, I was happy to see a few new artifacts and minerals, but nothing really stood out. I dropped some things off at home and headed to the desert. I brought Sandy a sweet pea flower and purchased as many starfruit seeds as I could afford, which wasn't many. I utilized a spawning spot outside the Skull Cavern and fished up as many sandfish as possible, as they are one of Penny's favorite things. It takes all kinds, I suppose. I finally went mining, and it wasn't a very exciting trip. I never felt as if I was in any real danger, and although it was a good luck day, I didn't get any treasure chest floors. I did leave with 78 pieces of iridium, and when I returned home, I crafted 2 crystallariums, one for rubies and the other for emeralds. I had more strawberries ready in my greenhouse on day 7. I crafted more strawberry seeds for spring while I planted and watered my starfruit. That afternoon, I headed to the desert where I purchased 10 beet seeds. I won't be selling these for vegetable profits. I wanted to collect all the rare crow scarecrows, and to do that, I would need beets. I traded jade for staircases at the desert trader and headed into the Skull Cavern. Clint had requested 40 copper ore, and I might as well do it in the most dangerous area available at this time. I saw the barrage of baddies as an indication it was time to leave for the evening. I spent the rest of my money on more starfruit seeds and returned to Pelican Town. I stopped by the saloon and turned in Clint's request. Then it was time to plant and water the beets and starfruit in my greenhouse. Sure, I could have planted the beets outside, but I was out of sprinklers anyway. So I set up my one iridium sprinkler temporarily so I wouldn't have quite as much watering in the morning. I reached level 9 combat. I had a letter from Linus on day 8. It was blackberry season and his basket had gone missing. I would make an effort to return it by the end of the day. I had my first cranberries ready to harvest, and I sold all of them. Penny was on a field trip with the children and asked me to be a guest speaker. I told them about my adventures in the mines, and Vincent scared Jess while teasing her about goblins. That was enough of that. I had blackberries to pick. I busted stumps in the secret woods and found my way into town. I checked the special orders board and accepted Demetrius's biome balance request. I just needed to fish up 20 lake fish. I returned Linus's basket and headed to the mines to work on a slime slaying request. I finished it quickly and would turn it in the following day. I started working on fishing at the mountain lake and caught about half that I needed for the request before returning home. I reached level 9 foraging. My kegs were ready to refill on day 9. I added more to my shed and started processing strawberries and blueberries. I headed to the mountain lake to finish up Demetrius's special order. Once it was done, I received 1,500 gold. In town, I delivered a topaz to Granny Evelyn and turned in the slime slaying request to Mayor Lewis, who was in the middle of his physical exam. Without wanting to further violate any HIPAA violations, I accepted the prize token and ran out to exchange it and the one from Demetrius for a houseplant and combat quarterly. Upon reading the book, I gained some combat experience. I had some geodes crushed at Clint's and donated the new mineral to the museum. I headed to Joja Mart and purchased the Minecraft community upgrade. The rest of the afternoon and evening was spent foraging for berries, busting stumps, and chopping trees on my farm. The minecarts were fixed overnight. I awoke to the patter of raindrops on my farmhouse roof on day 10. I checked my mail and saw Demetrius sent me the blueprints for the farm computer. I had strawberries and the sweet gemberry ready to harvest in the greenhouse. I headed to the secret woods, and after some slime slaying and stump busting, I presented the sweet gemberry to Master Cannoli and received a star drop. I wandered through the forest collecting berries that afternoon. In town, I headed to Joja Mart and unlocked the bridge to the quarry. I stopped at Clint's and ordered a watering can upgrade. I headed to the mines where I was searching for 2 things, copper ore and the ancient seed artifact. The copper wouldn't be an issue, but I could not believe it was fall and I still hadn't found an ancient seed. Real talk, I usually have one at the latest early summer. It wasn't as if I had been avoiding donating to the museum or the mines, so I'm not sure why it's been evading me. I left that night with a pocket full of copper, but no ancient seed. The bridge to the quarry was fixed overnight. On the morning of day 11, I discovered some amaranth and beets had grown from mixed seeds. I would deliver the amaranth to Marnie another day. If I already had some beets ready, I might as well get started on unlocking the casino. I started by putting the battery pack in the tunnel, then the rainbow shell at the train platform. In town, I gave Jody some pancakes for her birthday and utilized a fish spawning spot. At Joja Mart, I unlocked the final community upgrade, and I'd be able to start panning in the waters starting the next day. But let's be real, I probably won't. Back in the mountains, I requested a house upgrade from Robin. I headed to the mines, where the wizard had requested the slaying of 2 squid kids. Along the way, I picked up the book Woodcutter's Weekly, and upon reading it, I gained some foraging experience. I eliminated the specified baddies and collected ore and gems the rest of the evening. Morris oversaw the removal of the glittering boulder overnight. Day 12 was probably my busiest day up to this point. It all started when I turned in the wizard's quest and brought Marnie the amaranth she requested. In town, Morris and the Joja employees celebrated the great work we did together for the good of Pelican Town. Why, this place was in shambles before I came along, and together we are cutting out small businesses left and right, all for the good of big box commerce. He gave me a soda machine for my efforts. I fished at a spawning spot at the beach and headed to Clint's to pick up my watering can. I requested another upgrade for it. I stopped by the sewer to purchase an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. That reminded me I needed to stop up near the mountains. When I got there, Willie showed me how to pan for ore. "There's gold in them there hills," apparently. At the train stop, the wizard enlisted my help in stealing back his missing ink. I returned to Krobus, who opened the mutant bug lair. I grabbed the dark talisman and returned to the mountains. I had to fish up a void mayonnaise, and would you look at that, it was the first thing I fished up. I gave it to the goblin henchman and grabbed the ink. I returned to the wizard's tower, where I gained access to his book of summoning. I can craft magic buildings, like a really ugly clock. I ran all over town on day 13. Mayor Lewis sent me 2,500 gold for helping so many of my neighbors, and Willie unlocked his back room and wanted me to stop by. My cranberries and broccoli were ready to harvest, and my first batch of fairy rose honey was ready. I harvested the beets in my greenhouse. I delivered a refined quartz to my future mother-in-law, Pam, and she gave me a prize token. It was Abigail's birthday, and I gifted her an amethyst. While at Pierre's, I purchased the bouquet for Penny. I gave it to her, and she was pretty happy. I exchanged my prize token for a Stardrop tea, and put the beets in the mayor's fridge. The next part of the quest chain would be at the Calico Desert. I gave Penny an emerald and the Stardrop tea, and maxed out our relationship. I could buy the mermaid's pendant and propose on the next rainy day. I dropped off the materials needed to fix Willie's boat and found a spicy eel in the saloon's trash. I bought 2 more and headed to the desert. I gave the sand dragon a solar essence and gave Sandy a sweet pea. I headed into the skull cavern. I found quite a bit of iridium as I was starting my treks at lower levels. A serpent dropped a rabbit's foot. I found a prismatic shard, and 2 more that evening. I left with 99 pieces of iridium ore. Willie's boat was fixed overnight. I had some pumpkins and crops from mixed seeds ready to harvest on day 14. I filled in the space with more mixed seeds and crafted some cranberry seeds. Penny sent me a letter asking me to meet her in the bathhouse after dark. I retrieved the club card from my woodpile and now I'll be able to gamble at the Calico Desert. I headed to Robbins to purchase a tractor. Yes, I'm using mods, including the tractor mod. Although money is the ultimate goal, I'm definitely making this more difficult for myself. While I'm not spending any money on it, I'm spending 20 iron bars. That's 20 kegs I could be crafting. Anyway, I picked up my watering can from Clint and headed to the desert to buy 28 starfruit seeds. I met Willie at his shop and he took me to Ginger Island. I started gathering golden walnuts and headed to the volcano dungeon. The beasties were in full force, and that did not make me very happy. I managed to make it to the top and was so excited to use the volcanic forge on my galaxy sword, I even brought along extra prismatic shards. And I got the bug killer enchantment. Yay. I would be reforging this as soon as I had enough cinder shards to do so. I returned to the beach and bribed the parrots to move the sleepy tortoise so I could set up a tent and sleep there for the night. I awoke in strange surroundings on day 15. I got to work cleaning up some of the farmland on the west side of the island. I planted my starfruit seeds and realized I had not purchased enough. Whoops! I returned to Pelican Town and picked up the community cleanup special order. Linus wanted 20 pieces of trash fished out of the waters and recycled. That was exactly the kind of request I was looking for. Upon completion, Linus would give me the crafting recipe for fiber seeds that I could use as placeholders during the winter so my crop field wouldn't be a mess for spring. It was Sandy's birthday, so I traveled to the desert, and I foolishly forgot she wanders all over the place with Emily. I wasn't able to purchase more starfruit seeds, but I gave her a sweet pea flower anyway. My kegs were ready, so I smelted iron bars and was able to craft 11 more. I refilled them with the end of my melons and some strawberries. I met Penny in the bathhouse, and we talked about our feelings. Aw, that's sweet. I headed into the mines to fish for trash the rest of the evening. I added the 5 pieces I found to the recycling receptacle before heading home. My orange and pomegranate trees were fully matured on day 16. I didn't have much to do around the farm, so I fished up trash for Linus's special order until it was time for the Stardew Valley Fair. I did not want to participate as I wasn't going to have any vegetables or animal products. It's not that you need to have them, but it does help to have a variety of goods to display. So I did the next best thing. I threw in a pair of lucky purple shorts and some Gold Star veggies I was using for energy. Mayor Lewis was not impressed, but he gave me 750 star tokens. Marnie seemed a bit confused about the strange purple lettuce in my display and realized what the item in question actually was. Why didn't Marnie suggest that it was purple cabbage? Why lettuce? I wanted to obtain the Star Drop and Rare Crow Scarecrow, so I got to work playing the Slingshot game and the fishing game before obtaining enough star tokens. After the festival, I dropped off the rest of the trash I had fished up and was awarded 500 gold for my efforts. Lina sent me the crafting recipe for fiber seeds on day 17. My fairy rose honey was ready and my tractor was ready to go. Linus had requested a diamond and I delivered it. Wait, so he gave me 500 gold for fishing trash out of the water, but has 2,250 gold lying around for diamonds? What? Make it make sense. I had Clint open some geodes for me and I donated the goodies to the museum. At the beach, I purchased the mermaid pendant from the old mariner. You won't believe it, but I did not propose. I adore Penny, but marrying her right now is not ideal. I don't have the resources to shower her in emeralds, melons, and poppies. I'm trying to get my island farm off the ground, and I'd never be home to spend any time with her. So for now, I'm holding off. I sold some beach forage to Willie and headed to my island farm. I planted my starfruit seeds and headed to the volcano dungeon. Halfway through, I opened the exit shortcut so I wouldn't have to trek the whole way through every time if I wasn't up to it. In the next to last room, I found the dwarf sword. It was slightly slower than my galaxy sword, but its minimum attack was stronger, and honestly, I liked the looks of it. I forged it with a prismatic shard, and yes, I got the Crusader enchantment, my favorite enchantment, hands down. On the morning of day 18, I crafted 15 iridium sprinklers. I wouldn't be able to fully transition to the higher quality until probably next year, but I wanted as many as possible at Ginger Island. I made quick work of harvesting my cranberries thanks to my tractor and took it inside the greenhouse to scoop up some strawberries. In town, I purchased a wheat seed I'd need on my island farm and the fruit trees that were missing from my greenhouse. I returned to my farm to set them up. I headed to the desert where I bought more starfruit seeds and delivered a ruby to Sandy. I entered the casino, but it was a bad luck day and I had other things to do. I took the boat to Ginger Island and started setting up the sprinklers. I hate that I'm wasting space with pathing, but I don't want to lose my precious crops to weeds. The only way to truly prevent weeds from spreading is the gold clock, and I'm not going to get that. There's fencing and pathing. I'm going with 2 rows of pathing to prevent the weeds from spreading too much. Hopefully that will slow them down. It was getting late and I'd have to return with more seeds and continue another day. I utilized a fish spawning spot that evening before returning home. Caroline sent me a request for a pumpkin on day 19. I had one stashed away, so this would be a breeze. I delivered a cranberry to Demetrius and received a prize token. While I was there, I ordered a shed upgrade from Robin. In town, I delivered the pumpkin to Caroline and had an interesting conversation with Pierre. It seems his dream is to keep opening new shops until he becomes extremely wealthy. He's just as bad as Morris. Actually, he's worse because Morris lets you know he's all about capitalism. Pierre would rather just boo-hoo behind his counter. I traded in my prize tokens for a cow decal and Omni Geodes. Then I bought an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. I headed to the desert and exchanged Omni Geodes for artifact troves before buying more starfruit seeds. I brought the artifact troves to Clint in hopes of finding an ancient seed, and no dice. Annoyed, I was off to Ginger Island where I obtained a ruby dropped by a gem bird. I put it at the shrine thingy and worked on my island farm the rest of the evening. I chopped some trees on my farm first thing on day 20. Then I stopped in my greenhouse and saw the most beautiful sight. My first starfruits were ready to harvest. Unfortunately, I had used all of my extra starfruit seeds at the island farm, so I'd be heading back to the desert for more. I purchased the seeds and brought 10 iridium bars to the desert trader for the desert warp totem crafting recipe. I spent the rest of the day mining for materials. I utilized the elevator and my tractor, and while it was a bad luck day, I didn't have a bad time. I was able to quickly slay mummies thanks to the Crusader enchantment on my cool sword, and I picked up 10 prismatic shards. Now don't you worry, I'm not going to sell them. I'll either use them for enchantments, which would require more cinder shards, gifts, or something else, but I'm not going to be selling them for profit. On floor 100, there was a chest waiting for me with 5 warp totems that will take me directly back to my farm. These would be very helpful at Ginger Island. On day 21, I planted my starfruit seeds in the greenhouse. I didn't have as many as I would have liked, but it was a good start. My fairy rose honey was ready, and I crafted more bee houses. I delivered a peach to Robin for her birthday. I purchased 10 fairy rose seeds from Pierre and took some artifact troves to Clint. No ancient fruit. I brought Penny an emerald to let her know I was still thinking about her. On my island farm, I planted the fairy rose flower seeds and set up the bee houses I crafted. I wasn't going to place bee houses or kegs anywhere that was not farmland. That includes the quarry, the desert, the train stop, and the tunnel. I wanted to keep to the designated farming areas because I like to go for realism. In a game with a wizard and mermaids and magic statues and an ugly gold clock. Anyway, I fished for 2 walnuts so I could unlock the island house. That would make things a little easier. I headed to the volcano dungeon for a little bit and decided to head home. I stopped at the quarry and brought home over 100 pieces of coal, which was great as I was nearly out of it. I reached level 10 fishing and chose the pirate profession. Yo ho ho! Chance to find treasure is doubled. I chose this because there's a 0.7 to 0.8% chance to find an ancient seed. Jody was waiting on my farmhouse porch on day 22. She invited me to have dinner with her family. I just had to bring a largemouth bass. It was wine day. I crafted some kegs and rearranged my large shed before adding starfruit, strawberries, and cranberries. I had more strawberries ready to harvest in the greenhouse. In town, I picked up the special order. Willie wanted 100 pieces of bug guts. Fine by me, those winged wretches are known for dropping ancient seeds, so I was fired up. I had Clint process some geodes and I ordered an axe upgrade. I headed to the mines and left with 25 pieces of bug guts, but you guessed it, no ancient seed. A field of red greeted me on day 23. It was another cranberry harvest. Once I finished up around the farm, I headed to Ginger Island. It was a rainy day and I wanted to get a gem to add to the shrine thingy. I stopped at the dock when a fish spawning spot caught my eye. I fished all morning and found tons of artifacts from treasure chests. But no ancient seed. I fought some tiger slimes and found my first group of pineapple seeds. I planted them and tracked down the gem bird on the east side of the island. I returned home and went to the mines to work on Willie's special order. I battled the winged wretches on and on and on, from afternoon and well into the evening, when not 1, but 3 ancient seeds dropped from a grub. I was so excited I yelled loud enough to wake up Ophelia back at the farmhouse. I left with 33 bug guts and reached level 10 combat. I chose the brute profession. My attacks do 15% more damage. On day 24, I harvested a few odds and ends from mixed seeds before heading into town. I picked up my axe from Clint and dropped off my hoe for an upgrade. I donated the ancient seed to the museum and picked up the recipe and seed rewards. It was George's birthday and I gave him one of my prismatic shards. At my farm, I planted the ancient fruit seeds in my greenhouse with some deluxe speed grow. I headed to Ginger Island. The gem bird was on the west side of the island and dropped an amethyst. Through the process of elimination, I determined the topaz was the missing gem. I had enough golden walnuts to unlock the bridge where I freed Professor Snail. I made donations to the little museum and collected more walnuts. I took the boat back and headed to the mines. I didn't find many bug guts, and as much as I love Willie, I wasn't going to continue this quest. I was happy with the 3 ancient seeds I obtained, but I really don't need the reward, a high-quality fish bobber. Nah. My fairy rose honey was ready on day 25. All my skills were maxed out, except for foraging, so that's what I focused on. I stump busted in the secret woods. and utilized a fish spawning spot. I delivered a red mushroom to Elliot and sold the fish I caught to Willie. The rest of the day was spent on my farm, just about 12 hours of chopping trees. And I did it the manual way. It's too easy to chop down fruit trees with a tractor, so I put my back into it and chopped away. I did not reach level 10 foraging, but I was inching closer. I had strawberries ready to harvest on day 26. I spent the rest of the morning cutting down trees on my farm. I stopped by the sewer and purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus before heading to Ginger Island. I had honey ready to collect. I planted the wheat seed and rearranged my bee houses. I spent the rest of my day at the volcano dungeon, farming cinder shards for tool enchantments. I didn't get many before I had to return home. I reached level 10 foraging and chose the lumberjack profession. All trees have a chance to drop hardwood. I felt that a new way had opened on day 27. I headed to the cindersap forest and found Grandpa's secret room. I'd keep honing my skills to unlock some of the best tools and crafting recipes he had set aside for me. I didn't have anything better to do, so I spent the day in the mines. I completed Willie's bug gut special order, but the town was closed off due to preparations for the Spirits Eve festival. I didn't want to forget to turn it in, so I used the beach warp totem to drop off the bug guts and was awarded 3,000 gold. Then I used the mountain warp totem to exit. I stopped at the Adventurers Guild and picked up some monster slaying rewards, including the crab shell ring, which adds +5 defense. I slayed dust sprites the rest of the evening until it was time for the festival. I purchased a rare crow scarecrow for my collection. I chatted with everyone and made my way through the spooky maze to claim the golden pumpkin. On day 28, I harvested the last of my cranberries and picked my fairy rose flower. Fall had come to an end, and tomorrow would mark the first day of winter. I picked up my hoe from Clint and requested a pickaxe upgrade. Then I headed to the desert, where I ate a spicy eel and bought coins to gamble at the slot machines for a rare crow scarecrow. It was a lucky day, and I earned more than enough to purchase the alien rare crow, a top hat for Ophelia, and 20 farm warp totems. I decided to play the slots for a good while longer. I had triple milks, fish, melons, diamonds, and cherries throughout my session. I turned in more coins for some wallpaper and flooring. I left the desert and in town exchanged a prize token for some kegs. I headed to Ginger Island and utilized a fish spawning spot. I had starfruit ready, but no seeds. I want to keep them on a little bit of a schedule, so I'm going to wait until I had a little more to harvest. Back at my farm, I crafted some kegs and set them up. I wasn't going to refill them yet, so I left them. My farmhouse felt much cooler on day 1. Winter had arrived, wrapping the valley in her chilly embrace of ice and snow. When I headed into town, I spotted a suspicious-looking figure, and when I tracked it down, I obtained the magnifying glass. Now I can read secret notes that reveal rare and useful information. I brought Penny an emerald and gifted Krobus a prismatic shard for his birthday. I picked up Clint's special order, Cave Patrol. I needed to slay 50 bats. I might not finish this one. I had a lot of work to do to get my farm ready for spring. If I wanted a diversion, I could always slay some bats. I headed to the desert and purchased 250 starfruit seeds. Then I was off to my island farm, where I showed off my fully grown melon to the frog, who gave me golden walnuts. I harvested my starfruit and replanted them. That morning, I had removed the bee houses from my farm, and now I added them to my island setup. I returned to town and utilized a fish spawning spot before crafting more kegs and refilling them. The rest of the evening was spent working on my new layout. This was going to take a long time and tons of stone pathing. I'm glad that I had done so much mining. I awoke to the first snow of the season on day 2. I spent most of the morning organizing a new crop area over by Grandpa's shrine. I took a break to deliver an earth crystal to Pam. She gave me a prize token. I picked up my iridium pickaxe from Clint, and he opened some geodes for me. I ordered a hoe upgrade and donated some new minerals to the museum. I exchanged the prize token for 5 diamonds and spent the rest of the afternoon and evening reworking my farm layout. I spent all of day 3 working on my farm, except in the evening when I delivered a blueberry tart to Linus for his birthday. It is really very dull watching me hoe up tile, craft more tile, place tile, chop down trees, and so on, so I'll give you the very quick version. As you might expect, day 4 was also spent working on my farm. I took a mid-morning break to pick up my hoe from Clint, and immediately found a bone to donate to the museum. Then I was off to Pierre's to purchase fruit saplings. I was just going to plop them into the ground when I considered how nice it might look if I incorporated some hardwood fencing, so I took the time to plan out how I wanted it to look, and by that evening, I had an orchard. The rest of the night was spent clearing out trees from the bottom corner. I wanted to make a full-blown tree farm to farm copious amounts of oak resin for kegs. I could have just focused on preserve jars, but those required coal, and I was always running out of it. I was already using a fair amount on my bee houses. I couldn't afford to use more on preserve jars. So fairy rose honey and kegs seemed the best course of action. For now, anyway. On day 5, I had strawberries ready in the greenhouse. I took my seed makers down to the bottom of the farm and turned regular quality strawberries into seeds while I finished my oak tree area. Once finished, I headed to the desert and purchased 200 starfruit seeds. I stopped by the sewer and purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. At the beach, I beachcombed and sold the shells to Willie before heading to Ginger Island. My wheat was ready, so I showed it off to the frog for some golden walnuts. I harvested my starfruit and replanted it. My fairy rose honey was ready, and I gathered it and rearranged some of my bee houses. I planted more starfruit and utilized a fish spawning spot before returning to Pelican Town. I fished at the beach for a squid to give to Willie, but never found one. I felt like $1,000,000 on day 6, probably because I had earned 1,000,000 gold. My goal was 1,000,000 total earned, but it was nice to see the progress I made throughout the year. I was in the mountains to order a shed from Robin when I hoed up an ancient seed. It was a good luck day, and that continued as a train rolled through the valley. I collected wood, gold ore, and frozen geodes tossed from the train cars. I ordered a shed from Robin and headed to Clint's. The blacksmith opened the frozen geodes, and I ordered an axe upgrade. I delivered a snow yam to George and planted the ancient seed in my greenhouse with some speed grow. I traveled to the desert and gifted a crocus to Sandy before heading into the Skull Cavern. I wasn't going to finish Clint's bat slaying request, but I hoped some iridium bats would drop battery packs. I survived several bat attacks and left home with 2 batteries. When I returned home, I used all of my battery packs to craft the iridium sprinklers I'd need for spring. Pierre was waiting on my porch on day 7. He was selling new seeds next year, and I really wasn't interested. I'd pick up a garlic seed from my island farm, but that would be about it. I spent the morning working on my sprinkler setup. First iridium, then quality. I stopped in town for a bit to wish Caroline a happy birthday with a summer spangle I had saved from summer, and I picked up more fruit saplings. At my farm, I crafted tree fertilizer and applied it to my oak tree farm. I didn't expect to see huge results over the winter. In fact, I probably wouldn't see a lot of progress until the next green rain of summer, but it was a start. The rest of the evening was spent arranging and rearranging sprinklers. Day 8 was the Festival of Ice, but I didn't attend. I was too busy around the farm for ice fishing. My oak resin was finally on a schedule, so I scooped it up and crafted more kegs. I set them up and refilled them with starfruit. I picked up Emily's Rock Rejuvenation special order in town. It would be easy. I already had all of the gems, and I wanted my own sewing machine. I spent much of the afternoon back at the farm smelting bars and crafting more sprinklers and lightning rods. I attempted to deliver Emily's gemstones, then remembered that everything is closed because of the festival. Oh well. Now that my sprinklers were set up, it was time to plant a few powder melon seeds I had found. I didn't have any reason to stay up, so I went to bed early. I had some business in town on day 9, but I arrived a little too early. So I ocean fished and sold my haul to Willie. Caroline wanted a Joja Cola. Even Pierre's wife wants to see the business fail. I've always been a Caroline fan, and this just solidified it. I purchased the catalog from Pierre so I can have some fancy flooring and wonderful wallpaper in my sheds and farmhouse. I picked up my iridium axe from Clint and gave him my hoe for an upgrade. I chatted with Penny, and she said she was looking forward to seeing my spring farm. Aww, me too! Emily was getting ready for jazzercise, and I gave her the rocks needed to complete her rock rejuvenation request, and an amethyst that creepy Clint wanted her to have. I was paid 1,000 gold for the special order. Back at the farm, I rearranged my fruit trees and set up more around the pond. In my greenhouse, I had strawberries and starfruit ready to harvest. I spent the rest of the evening smelting bars and turning the regular quality strawberries into seeds for the spring. I had a letter from Emily on day 10. She sent me the sewing machine. I didn't waste any time setting it up. I used a piece of cloth and an ornamental fan artifact to craft the bridal shirt. I headed into town and proposed to Penny with a mermaid pendant. She said yes, and she'd set everything up. We'd be married in 3 days. I delivered a topaz to Elliot and received a prize token. I exchanged 2 tokens for mystery boxes and a magic rock candy. At Robin's, I delivered a frozen tear to Sebastian for his birthday and ordered a house upgrade. I dropped some things off at home and headed into Grandpa's secret room, where I chose the farming mastery. Then I was off to the desert. I exchanged 3 aquamarine for a piece of cloth and headed to the Skull Cavern. There were multitudes of mummies, bunches of iridium bats, and a floor full of slime. I headed home with some gems, ore, and cloth. I didn't sell much of anything. Before bed, I crafted the bridal veil from a pearl and a piece of cloth. Gotta get married in style. I spent the morning of day 11 crafting a skirt to go with my wedding wear, a little honey and cloth, and I had crafted the perfect dress. I dyed it until it matched the rest of my look, and I was off to town. I picked up my gold hoe from Clint and ordered an iridium upgrade. I had nothing better to do, so I headed to the mines to work on some monster eradication goals. I was running low on coal, and a burglar ring would be nice, so I slayed dust sprites. The monsters weren't overwhelming, and I didn't find anything particularly noteworthy, aside from Woodcutter's Weekly, which I read for some foraging experience. I had a letter from the wizard on day 12. He wanted a void essence. I had a whole bunch of them, so that wouldn't be a problem. My oak trees had matured thanks to the tree fertilizer, and I got to work crafting tappers. I spent the rest of the morning smelting copper bars, crafting tappers, and setting them up. I stopped by the traveling cart lady and purchased a rare crow scarecrow. I delivered the void essence to the wizard, and in town I delivered a refined quartz to Granny Evelyn. I spent the rest of the evening in the mines farming dust sprites for coal. Before bed, I crafted winter roots and cave carrots to make some root platters, one of Penny's favorite meals. On day 13, Penny and I were married. The whole town was there to celebrate our commitment to one another. I was going to try to be home more often and try to get to bed at a decent time. No promises, though. I still had a lot of money to make. After the wedding, I gave Penny one of the root platters I had made the night before. She loved it. I changed into my regular clothes and gave the veil to Ophelia because she's adorable. My hoe was ready for pickup, and I delivered an amethyst to Linus. I spent the rest of the day and evening in the mines where I hunted for dust sprites, but didn't find many. I returned home before Penny went to bed. Success! I headed to the mines first thing on day 14. I thought I had forgotten to purchase the rare crow scarecrow from the dwarf, so I picked it up. Jody had requested an earth crystal, so I delivered it and earned myself a prize token. I gave Dr. Harvey a cup of coffee for his birthday. I exchanged my prize token for a Stardrop tea that I gave to Willie. He was nice enough to take me back and forth to my island farm, so it was the least I could do. I had honey and starfruit ready, but not enough starfruit seeds to replant, so I headed to the desert and purchased more. A lot more. Then I returned to my island farm and replanted them. I returned home pretty early, and Penny asked if I wanted to spend a quiet evening at home. And I did. I had the deluxe scarecrow crafting recipe waiting in my mailbox on day 15. I had some powder melons to harvest, and some oak resin from my original tappers was ready. It was also time to refill my kegs. I crafted some additional ones with the newly acquired oak resin, set them up, and filled them with starfruit. In town, I picked up the special order, Robin's Resource Rush. The Carpenter's Challenge involved collecting 1,000 pieces of lumber. This was perfect, as I knew just the place to start gathering. I was off to Ginger Island and chopped down every last tree. I returned to town and headed to the quarry where I cleaned up the rest of the trees. I completed the challenge and made 2,500 gold. I'd definitely be needing the lumber for kegs, so this was win-win. I traded in a prize token for a treasure chest and headed to the night market. I purchased a ton of tulip and blue jazz seeds so I wouldn't have to rush around on the 1st of spring. I picked up a cute cloud banner and some houseplants for Penny. On my way home, I ran into Maru, who congratulated me on my marriage. She recalled the first time Penny told her about her feelings for me. I love their friendship. I met Penny on the way home and offered her a ride on my sweet, sweet ride, but she was deep in thought, probably about what an embarrassment I was riding all over Pelican Town in my tractor. Robin sent me the blueprints for the stone chest on day 16. I didn't have much to do around the farm, so I headed to Grandpa's secret room where I picked up the combat mastery. At Clint's, I ordered a watering can upgrade. The blacksmith opened my geodes and I donated new minerals to the museum. Then I ordered an obscene amount of coal. Prices will increase next year, so I might as well stock up now. I headed to the mines and stayed on an infested floor to farm dust sprites. I found my first trinket, the magic quiver. I equipped it for some combat assistance. I finished the monster eradication goal for the dust sprites and headed to the Adventurers Guild where I sold some old gear and claimed the burglar and vampire ring. I was off to the night market where I purchased the pretty mermaid painting. I offered Penny a ride again, but she declined. At home, I set up a houseplant that I found in the mines and hung up my new painting. It was another early night. Clint sent me a request for an iron bar on day 17. It was the wizard's birthday, so I brought him a void essence. In town, I delivered Clint's iron bar. I spent the rest of the day in the lower levels of the mines. I sold a pair of boots to the Adventurers Guild before heading to the night market. Nothing caught my eye, so I headed home. On day 18, Mayor Lewis sent me a notice about the Feast of the Winter Star Festival. I had to get something for Demetrius, probably one of my prismatic shards. I beachcombed and sold my shells to Willie before heading to Clint's. I picked up my watering can and requested an iridium upgrade, and he opened some geodes. I delivered a jade to Emily, completing a fetch quest. I checked my greenhouse, and my ancient fruit and fruit trees were ready to harvest. I turned the ancient fruit back into seeds and replanted them with speed grow. I went through some chests and found 326 cranberries I didn't need, so I sold them. I went mining in the higher levels and left with 2 more ancient fruit seeds that I added to my greenhouse with speed grow. I found a gold animal cracker on day 19, but as I don't have any animals or fish ponds, I would sell it. In town, Granny Evelyn requested a sandfish and I delivered it. I stopped by the sewer to purchase an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. I set up some sprinklers and added fiber seeds. Then I crafted a statue of blessings. My oak resin was ready, so I got to work crafting 31 kegs and setting them up. I was out of copper, so I headed to the Skull Cavern. It was a batty day, but 2 of them dropped battery packs, which I would use to craft more iridium sprinklers when I returned home. On day 20, I gave Penny a sandfish, and she gave me a star drop as a symbol of her love. Then she made me an omelet. It was delicious. I had more copper bars ready, so I was able to craft more kegs. My first shed was full. Now on to the second. I would need more copper, and Clint had posted a request for 40 copper ores, so I got to work collecting them. That afternoon, I picked up my watering can and turned in the ore request to Clint. He gave me a prize token. It was Granny Evelyn's birthday, and I gave her one of my fairy rose flowers. I turned in the prize token for an iridium sprinkler. Then I was back to the desert to collect copper and battery packs in the Skull Cavern. It was another bat-filled afternoon, but I left with 3 battery packs that I crafted into more sprinklers. Penny made me pancakes on the morning of day 21. Mayor Lewis sent me 500 gold from the Stardew Valley Agricultural Fund, and Robin sent me a request for 10 pieces of hardwood. I crafted and set up kegs in my new shed. Then I delivered the hardwood to Robin. While in the mountains, I dug up a treasure chest. That afternoon, I headed to the desert and purchased some rhubarb seeds for spring. Then I played around in the Skull Cavern and survived yet another bat attack. I had strawberries ready to harvest in my greenhouse on day 22. In town, I picked up the special order, a curious substance. The wizard wanted ectoplasm from a ghost. I'd see what I could do. I headed to Ginger Island, where I had fairy rose honey and starfruits ready. I had to journey back to the desert for more starfruit seeds, then return to the island to replant them. My kegs were ready, and I filled them with regular quality starfruit and strawberries. I headed to the mines for the rest of the day, and while I found some ghosts, none of them dropped the curious substance. I fell asleep happy with what would be my biggest payday yet. I awoke on day 23 with the realization I was over halfway to my financial goal. I wasn't going to have the opportunity to make loads of cash over the remaining week of the season, so I decided to take it easy. I crafted some beehives and set them up. Then I headed to the secret woods with maple syrup for a bear who left me with special bear knowledge, and now salmon berries and blackberries are worth 3 times as much. I dropped off my final salad to Leah for her birthday. Then I was into the mines to hunt for ectoplasm. A ghost finally dropped one, and I delivered it to the wizard for 2,500 gold. The wizard sent me the crafting recipe for the mini obelisk on day 24. The Statue of Blessing had bestowed the prismatic butterfly upon the valley today, and it greeted me as soon as I left my farm. I felt richer from the interaction. I brought a rabbit's foot to the knight, usually truck driver, outside of Jojamart in exchange for the special luck charm. My luck is permanently increased. I traded in some duplicate books to the bookseller and exchanged a prize token for a fancy houseplant. The rest of the evening, I crafted some deluxe scarecrows and cleaned up around the farm. Day 25 was the Feast of the Winter Star. Penny and I exchanged gifts. I gave her a sandfish, and she gave me pancakes. In my greenhouse, my ancient fruit were ready to harvest. I put them through the seed maker and replanted them with speed grow. At this rate, I'll reach 1,000,000 gold without any ancient fruit wine. It was time for the festival. I chatted with my neighbors, and Penny said she was thankful to have met me. Aw, same! I gave Demetrius one of my prismatic shards and was excited that Willie had provided my gift. 25 beach warp totems. Holy Christmas, that was an awesome gift. I could warp over to the beach, then off to my island farm in a jiffy. I bought a pretty winter banner to celebrate the season from Skinflint Pierre before heading home. My greenhouse strawberries were ready to harvest on day 26. It was Clint's birthday, and I brought him a topaz. Gus wanted an albacore, and I had one, but the saloon didn't open until noon. So I asserted my dominance by riding my tractor around the bar in circles until it opened. I delivered the fish and returned home. I had oak resin ready and crafted more kegs for my little shed. On day 27, winter was almost over, and I couldn't wait to get back to farming. In the meantime, I picked up a fishing request from Willie, who wanted 4 red mullets. I fished most of the morning and turned in the request. I crafted more lightning rods and set them up. At home, Penny asked about my day, and it was fantastic. Because I worked so hard, she wanted me to have a nice, cozy home to return to. She had some handmade decorations she wanted to put up, and I told her I would love a strawberry theme. Strawberries are my favorite thing, of course. I couldn't wait to see what she had planned. Penny thanked me for a great year together on day 28. I waited behind the playground at noon and found a cute Junimo plush I would add to Penny's plant room at home. I stopped at my island farm where I had fairy rose honey and starfruit ready to harvest. I replanted the starfruit before heading home. Tomorrow was going to be a very busy day, and I wanted to get to bed early. Penny said it was really starting to feel like home. She was right. Winter's wrath and chill had melted and made way for spring on day one. Jody's husband Kent stopped by to introduce himself. He had been overseas for military service. I'd be sure to say hello when I saw him in town. But I wouldn't be heading into town today. There was too much work around the farm. The clearing of weeds, branches, and stone. The tilling of the soil, the planting, the watering. It actually really wasn't too bad. The tractor did the heavy lifting, and thanks to my super preparedness, I only needed to purchase 48 rhubarb seeds from Sandy. The rest were previously purchased at the night market, or in the case of the strawberries, I had crafted them throughout the year. When I stopped for seeds, I hoed up a house plant. Penny was going to have quite the collection. I had to refill my kegs, and I ran out of starfruit. Fortunately, I had peaches, pomegranates, blueberries, and blackberries to fill in the rest. I set up Penny's plant and went to bed early, excited for what tomorrow would bring. I awoke to strange surroundings on day 2. Penny woke me up and showed off her handiwork in fixing up our bedroom. She had quilted the bedspread by hand, and I appreciated all that she did to make our house a home. As excited as I was about my new bedroom, I was just as thrilled to see that my last batch of wine had pushed me over my goal. I had over 1 million gold cash on hand. Honestly, I hadn't expected to reach my goal this quickly, all without ancient fruit wine, but it really happened. After Penny had done so much for me, I wanted to do something extra special for her, but that would have to wait until tomorrow. I stopped by my island farm and harvested some pineapple. Then I fished in the mountain lake to work on a fishing quest from Willie, who wanted me to catch 4 chub. I turned in the request and stopped to pick 2 spring onions in the cindersap forest for old time's sake. After Penny decorated our bedroom, I thought I should step it up and do some decorating myself. I ordered all the house renovations from Robin and got to work. I put together a formal dining room for holidays and a cozy kitchen for everyday use. A living room, Penny's beautiful bedroom, and a little hobby room where Penny could read and I could sew. I put together a library for my wife, complete with a sandfish tank so she could watch her favorite fish all day if she wanted. I also prepared a nursery, so when the time comes, we'll be ready. Penny had her plant room, and I added a family room. I had spent the past 2 weeks decorating my farm, and everything was finally ready. The strawberries and rhubarb could be processed into wine, and the tulips and blue jazz flowers were keeping the bees busy producing special honey. Maple syrup and oak resin production was going strong, and my fruit trees were finally blooming. One night I had heard an otherworldly sound, and an alien capsule had landed on the farm. Thankfully, it was tucked away behind some trees. I'd get Maru and Demetrius to look at it another time. I had an avenue of fruit trees and what I called Honey Corner, a spot by Grandpa's shrine dedicated to production of the sweet stuff. My farm was fully automated, but I thought an authentic wishing well would be a nice touch. After all, my dreams of becoming a millionaire had come true. I had moved to the valley with that simple goal, to make 1 million gold. Somewhere along the way, I found someone to spend my life with and a beautiful place to call home. I'm going to leave it here, but if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you'll be notified when a new video comes out. Please leave your comments and suggestions down below. Please share the video and the playlist around if you can. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.